I've often said that this isn't really much of a toy news channel, but when so much happens in a week that you happen to be mostly AWOL, it's hard not to comment on these particular things and happenings that are going on in the toy industry at the moment. So, once again, everyone, my name's Ken, and this is a bonus episode of the Toy Connections online live stream, or TKO, broadcasting at kind of an unorthodox hour at a less than ideal, or maybe just a less than orthodox time of the week. I mean, it's literally 1:30 in the afternoon over here on the West Coast, or 4:30 on the East Coast, or closer to the mid-late evening for those of you who are over in Europe. And hopefully those of you in the other side of the world, like Australia, New Zealand, are waking up and able to catch the stream when it happens to be on. Man, where do I even start? I mean, you notice that there wasn't a TKO this past weekend, and with good reason. I was on the way to Victoria, and you've already seen one video that I filmed while I was there, and I got another one premiering either Friday or Saturday, and then another one that'll premiere in the coming weeks. Like I got back on Sunday night, and I spent Monday and Tuesday just editing, snapping together things, scripting, and then while I was away, and maybe I'll step back for a sec, because the reason I was away is because I went to the Victoria's Ultimate Hobby and Toy Fair, which and shout out to Cherry Bomb Toys for putting that show on. And shout out to many of my other friends who were there. Peter, who helped me out, ages 3 and up, who I spent some time, had some dinner with. My buddy Steve from Delta 17, who's also a patron of this channel, treated me to a drink while we were out. Basically, I knew that the Pulse live stream, or the PulseCon, was going to go on it's actually September 30th to October 1st, but for me to get to Victoria, it's a 30-minute ride to the ferry. Then I got to get to the ferry terminal about 45 minutes to an hour early. And then and then on top of that, I then have to take the ferry, which is 90 minutes, and then I got to drive 30 or 35 minutes to the arena. Then we got to set up, which takes a good chunk of the night, and then get to our hotel. And then the next day, the show starts at 8 in the morning. So that runs all the way till 3 in the afternoon. And then I got to catch up with Steve from Delta 17. And we got to kind of meet up about some ideas about the toy line. And then we went to have dinner with some friends from the Cherry Bomb shop, and got to visit the National Toy Museum of Canada, which is on the top floor of their shop, which I filmed. So it was pretty much an entire toy adventure, like from when I left here on Friday late morning all the way until Sunday. And that's the thing, I haven't even talked about Sunday yet, because that was day 2 of the fair, or day 3 if you count the setup the night before. It was from 9 a.m. till 3 p.m. on the second day, and then we tore down and then headed for the ferry. But you know, with the amount of time it takes to tear down, head to the ferry on that side of the water, and then get over here, I was not back home. Oh, and I had to drop my friend Peter off because he came with me. I was not home till 8 p.m. in the evening, but it was basically from 11 a.m. on the Friday when the ferry left till 8 p.m. when we got here, and I had to come home and I had to unpack my entire car because I was a vendor. It was nothing but toys. And of course, during that time, all this information is coming out on PulseCon. I think it was yesterday they dropped the price of Mattel Creations, Eternia, and there was a lot of other stuff going on in the toy space as well, which I'll get to. Now, like I said, normally I like to do the more general topics, like, your favorite toy here, your favorite cartoon, looking back at the vintage line, making comparisons. I don't normally comment on recent events, but when so much happens, and I think I said this in my introduction a couple minutes ago, it's hard not to at least say, hey, you know what? Here's what I ordered. Here's what I passed on. What did you order? What did you pass on? Now, for those wondering, no, I will not be going into any sort of deep dive on the Engine of Vengeance that HasLab has out right now. That last I checked wasn't doing so hot. But I'm not gonna comment on that because I think there's already a lot of information out there. I personally didn't back it either. But anyway, let me say a quick hello to the chat, and we'll jump in from there. We've got Jim Largo. We've got GenXToysGeek, who, welcome to the channel membership. I updated the description just before you came on, and when I say description, I mean, like, normally I put the channel members and patrons names into the description of the video, and I updated that just as you joined. So I appreciate you joining. And Jody's responsible for basically some of the backgrounds on this on StreamYard here, as well as the logo that I have. So he's done a lot to support Toy Connections so far. Gosh, who else is here? We got a Facebook user who I need you to identify your name if you got a chance. We got Jonathan Redmond. We got Dale Santaford. Dale, I got your name there somewhere. There you go. Dale Santaford. And we got Ryan Sweeney as well. Thank you. And also just wanted to say GenXToysGeek Jody, if you guys haven't subscribed to his channel yet, he's got some great videos out there. Hasn't been putting that much on in a while, but what he does have up there is of good quality. And first, I want to say thank you for the super chat, and simply leaves a message that says, just cuz. Jody's a very, very generous supporter of this channel, and one of the key reasons that I've been able to up my game on the YouTube space. Everything from gear to banners, backgrounds, and everything. Jody has been able to has been very, very supportive. And yes, the minute you put this on, I put the background up because I had a different background earlier. And yeah, Jody, with the thumbnails thing, I was just watching what other people were doing with the thumbnails, and I decided, you know what, I'm gonna have to up my game a little bit. So the fact that a talented individual like yourself is noticed is much, much appreciated. And of course, it's Kevin Pellerin. Good to see you here. And yes, Jody, that's hilarious. Yeah, the Eternia was, well, I'll comment on that briefly. I have my feelings on it, but my feelings are by no means an authority, so I'll try not to harp on that too long. So, Pepper and Oil Capsule, Boba Hicks, good to see you, my friend. Turbo Toys, I've not seen your name before, but welcome. And Stephen S. and Bjorn Jurgensen. And Adam Drake. And if you got to figure out thumbnails, the best thing to do is just to find a background remover. There's the way I prepped this thumbnail is I went and I basically took an image online. Usually I try not to use an image from somebody's collection unless I know them. But if you use like something that's from like one of the big toy companies or one of the retail outlet that's selling, those photos get distributed all the time. So it's more than fair use to be able to use those. Strip out the background using an online background remover, whether it's an app on your phone or whether it's just a free uploader / downloader background remover on Google, which is what I do, and then just have a software like Adobe Express that can put this together. So that's what that is. And Analog Toys, welcome. I saw your unboxing earlier today, and wow, that was quite the unboxing. And I saw that some of your Patreon messages as well, and want to say congrats to Retro Blasting for 100,000 subscribers as well. I'm just reminded of that because of Tony's message about the same thing. So good to see you here. Jeff Morris, Eternia looks nice, but is too poor to buy. You know what, though? Regardless of whether it is, you know what? I'm going to say my comments on Eternia. So... yeah, my gosh, who have I missed around here so far? All right, so look, I mean, I'm trying to look around and see if I got to remind I set up this kind of not so much background, but just stuff in the back to kind of keep the spirit of toys going, because otherwise we just got the blank wall and the headboard for the bed. And okay, so look, a lot's been said out there already about the toy lines that have been putting up some new releases. And what I'd like to do is share a screen. And why has StreamYard's changed it? It says present screen now and not share screen. So interestingly enough, and I'll just say a quick hello to Joe Ricondo. Good to see you here. I know you were online on the Slaughterhouse a few days ago when Sarge was on talking to the members. So one of the things that hasn't been talked about, at least in the circles that I usually run in, and this wasn't on the thumbnail because I just ran out of room on the thumbnail, is this amazing looking 4 Horsemen Mythic Legions Headless Horseman. Now, I have to go through because I think it's sold out. It was actually Tim Muir, Impossiblepie, who mentioned this to me while I was at the while I was getting ready one morning to go out for the toy fair out in Victoria. They put the price, I think, at $120 and I think it's sold out right away. Now I'm not sure if it's still sold out because the page that I'm on is just the description page for it. It's not the actual it's not the actual order page. But Four Horsemen, and once I saw this Legend of Sleepy Hollow figure Oscura Headless Horseman, I thought to myself, wow, I can't believe they haven't actually thought about doing this kind of thing before. And as I talk about this, I just want to say I give a shout out to Jeremy Gerard, who is the webmaster of the Four Horsemen. About a year ago, I asked him whether or not I could use images from the website, and he said sure. But man, this is something that absolutely looks gorgeous. It's, even if you're not a Mythic Legions collector, this is something that if you were to get it and simply just put it as a standalone piece, it doesn't have to be Mythic Legions. It can be just any sort of Headless Horseman representation, especially if you're one of those who was a fan of the Legend of Sleepy Hollow. Now, I didn't even get a chance to pre-order this because by the time it showed up, it was already sold out, and I was busy at the toy fair. But for those who did get one, great. And I do hope that they release this to the online outlets, and it's not, well, maybe it'll stay as a Four Horsemen exclusive, but I'm not 100% sure if that's what they're going to do. But this is one of those things that I hadn't seen a lot of discussion about. So if you look at this, like, this is just artwork, but hopefully this is artwork that makes it onto the box or the card. But simply looking at it, like, come on, how cool is that? Like, how amazing is that? He's literally holding the jack-o'-lantern head, and he's got the horse there, the sword, the cape. It looks like a cloth goods cape. Like, look, I like I said, I know this wasn't on the thumbnail. This isn't a Mattel or a Hasbro or even a McFarlane thing. But this, I mean, how do you look at that and not fall in love with it? Now, whether or not you're okay with the $120 price tag, I'm not so sure. But let's be honest, the amount of detail that the Four Horsemen put in, that Mythic Legions is a passion project for them. So I just thought I'd point that out as part of this particular discussion. And yeah, it is a really cool pick, Turbo Toys. Now, and yes, oh, sorry, I should double check that. It's not a Mythic Legions. It's Figure Obscure is the name of the line. Yes, that's actually a good point. It's made by the Four Horsemen, but it's part of a different line, so that makes sense. And maybe it is not. Maybe it is plastic, Jody. Let me just have a quick look at that. Is it though? I'm not sure whether it's. I mean, it's clearly strung up in such a way, even if it is cloth, that they've done it so that they can actually pose it like that, at least for the purpose of photography. So I'm not sure. Anyway, Shellback Toy Rewind. We just streamed together a short while ago. And sorry, it's not art. You know what? I've been feeling under the weather the last couple of days. So if I'm less sharp than I normally am, or if I'm just dull all the time, I'll let you folks be the judge on that. So maybe I'm just not up to snuff right now and not even being able to tell art from photography these days. Ever since I got back from Victoria, I had trouble sleeping the night before because it'd been 3 years since I've gone to that particular Ultimate Toy Fair, which is, like I said, 200 tables and thousands of attendees and lots of toy finds, which I'll talk about on a video this weekend. So if I'm a little less sharp than I usually am, it's with good reason, because I had trouble sleeping, like I said, the nights before. And the last few days, I've just been really, really fatigued, and even had a nap earlier today, which is a rare thing for me. I'm not normally a middle of the day nap. Yeah, I was thinking it's wire as well. But without holding it in hand, I'm not 100% sure. And yes, shout out to Trevor Williams, 1/6 shooter, for doing that, for doing the photography on that. So yeah, and I wasn't actually aware that they were doing a new toy line. Yeah, okay. And yes, Jody, I know you always like pulling my leg. It's part of what's become our friendship these days. And Kevin Eugene, yeah, good to see you. Yes, it was out in Victoria. There was, since you're here, there was a little bit less than I expected for wrestling stuff, but I did see some LJ and WWF superstars out that way. So I mean, look, that's just the Headless Horseman discussion. There's quite a bit else that we got to see revealed. So here's the Alpha Trion and Orion packs 2-pack. Again, I'm starting with the toys that I haven't seen as much discussion about on my personal subscription feed. And I do know that some places that I do watch, like some of the toy news channels, did talk a little bit about this. Like I know Geek Dad Live chatted about this with Mega J Retro a few nights ago. I was on the road, so I only caught a very little part of this discussion. But other than that, I didn't see a whole lot of people talking about this particular 2-pack. Now, it's great that we get to see Alpha Trion in a modern toy line. And from what I can tell, that looks like a Scourge and the Sweeps recolor and slight remold with a new head. And with Orion packs, from what I can tell, that looks like the Cup body with the head. So, okay. I was looking forward to this particular one to come out, and we can talk about the price tag in a second, but with this being a Pulse exclusive, I realized I did not have any representation of Alpha Trion in my collection. I do know that they did, and one of you is going to have to help me here, maybe Jody, that they did a Vector Prime from one of the old series. Well, maybe it was Transformer Cybertron, and they did do an Alpha Trion exclusive a number of years ago from that mold. But this is the first one I've seen in a long time that has Alpha Trion. But what I did, is I knew Serpentor was going to come out the next day. So I put this in my cart like hours and hours before. And then when Serpentor went up, I added Serpentor to my cart and checked out right away. And I know that shipping is expensive to Canada. Like a lot of people paid $26.99 US to get it shipped to Canada just for Serpentor alone. And it was $29.99 to ship this set and Serpentor. So the fact that I was able to combine them is great. And I know some people are a little upset, or more than a little upset, about Serpentor selling out. Look, I'm no authority in any official capacity on this subject, but I suspect they're going to find a way to release Serpentor again after a period of time. Maybe it'll be without the air chariot. Maybe they'll do something a little bit different, but this isn't going to be a vent or a rant stream on this. As far as I know, I've only got an hour on this stream, and I got to see whether or not I got to pick up my son from school. So I'm not 100% sure how much time I have to stream today, but I'll go for at least an hour or so. And let me just catch up with the chat a little bit here as I see a few names. Hans Chow. Yes, I always love your emotion, Hans. Yes, and don't panic, he's here. Yeah, a lot of times I do tell you before I go live, Hans. And we got one of the other patrons, Will McLaughlin, over here. And yes, it is the Scourge repaint / head remold. I know that because I have a Scourge in my collection. So yeah, and for me, Boba Hicks, it just comes down to what I feel this represents in a collection. Like it's kind of like the early Genesis era of the Transformers mythology, where you've got Orion Pax before he was made into Optimus, and you've got Alpha Trion from, well, basically the kind of like the godfather of the Autobots. So that's kind of why I like it. And I don't have a G1 Alpha Trion. I see that it's $66.99, which I'm not going to go and say that it's grotesquely overpriced or anything, but for those of you out there who like to kind of analyze this sort of thing, it looks to me like if they're using the Scourge body, that's a Voyager size, and then the Orion packs would be deluxe size. So usually the Voyager is $31.99. So that's $32. And if you times it by 2, if it was 2 Voyagers, it'd be $64, which is right in line with what it is. The fact that the cup, see what I did there? The Orion Pax is a deluxe size. You'd expect it to be a tiny bit cheaper, but at the end of the day, it's an exclusive, so I expected some small markup. So I don't think it's grotesquely overpriced or anything like that. Like I said, I didn't even hesitate on this one, but I'm by no means encouraging people to do it if they if that's a big factor for them. So again, just some quick math there. A Voyager and a Deluxe usually doesn't come out to that type of price, but it's an exclusive, so I imagine they're going to make a bit less quantity, so therefore the slight hike. That's just my personal analysis on this thing. And yeah, it's relatively reasonable. And yes, like I said, the Voyagers are $32 each, but this is a Voyager and a Deluxe, so it's should be a bit less, but it's not up to me to give them a pass on it or not. A lot of people have opinions on it. Like I said, I needed an Alpha Trion, so I was always going to pay the price anyway. I'm less a fan of Orion packs, but like I said, he's the pre-Optimus Prime, and you know me, I love my evolution of mythology and evolution of toys, so it makes sense there. And yeah, Jonathan, exactly what I was saying there. And you know what, Jody, you're absolutely right. Especially with Alpha Trion, they always remold something. Like a lot of people in the G1 line, they would custom a G1 Scourge to make an Alpha Trion. And then the one that was released a number of years ago, I think I mentioned earlier, was a recolor with a new head mold for Vector Prime, and now they've done the same thing with Scourge. I think the reason they can kind of get away with it is because Alpha Trion was never shown as having much of an alt mode, so they can kind of just use whatever alt mode is out there. Yeah, so... And I guess this is just Vector Sigma that they're showing as far as the gold ping pong ball is concerned. Probably a little bit different. So yeah, again, I got this combined with the Serpentor in order to get it shipped. So to me, again, I had to have it. That's all I'll say about it. So just moving along a little bit here, because I got some other windows open. Now I'm talking a bit again about some of the stuff that others haven't chatted about, just because a lot of the peers that I have in this space got out of toys probably maybe in the earliest part of the 90s. A few of you guys are a few years older. Even the ones that are a few years younger may not have made it up until the day when Power Rangers in Space came out, because Power Rangers in Space, and this is their Megazord for that, is a 1998 series, and what I consider the best written Power Rangers series of all time. For those who don't know and may only be familiar with the first few years, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers took the first 3 years of Power Rangers, and then they did Power Rangers Zeo and then Turbo, and the 6th season was called Power Rangers in Space. Now, my understanding is that Power Rangers was going to end after that season, but it was so well received and the ratings were good, and it kind of saved the franchise. So when I look at the Astro Megazord or Astro Megaship when it's in its ship mode, I'm reminded of that. And the cool thing about it is, unlike all the other ones that have that Voltron 5 robots combiner mode, this is just a single robot, or a single Zord as they call it. So you just have to buy one, and it transforms into both modes. I did not go and order this because as far as I collect Power Rangers a little bit differently from people, right? Like the Megazords I do have are the ones from my childhood, and I buy the vintage ones. The Rangers themselves, those are the ones that I buy from either the Lightning Collection or the previous Bandai series. So while this does have more articulation, if I was to get an Astro Megazord again, I would probably try to get the 1998 version that I had as a kid. So I like that this has gotten a bit of love associated with it. Because most of my peers are only familiar with the first 3 seasons, I'm glad that they're trying to get this one back out there. I was still watching the show by 1998, albeit a lot of my friends weren't, but it had evolved. That 1998 season had evolved to more connective tissue between episode to episode, rivalries between certain Rangers and certain villains, mysteries around like when Andros, the main character, had his sister was kidnapped as a kid, and they discover her identity during the series. She ends up being one of the villains there. I'm saying it almost like I don't want to spoil it, but I know a lot of you probably won't watch it anyway, just because for a lot of you this was past their time. But again, it's good to see this get some level of coverage in terms of having toys made of it. But again, a lot of you here aren't Power Rangers fans. I'm just testing the waters here in case I do a Power Rangers video. But let's move on a tiny bit here. So this one's going to be the most divisive of all the topics, right? Is, you've got Eternia. Interestingly enough, I sort of just assumed that it was going to be over $500 in price tag. And the reason why I said that was because I remember the WWE New Generation ring. Well, I looked at it again recently. For some reason, I thought it was under $300. But when I looked at the New Generation ring that Mattel Creations did in the past, it was priced in at $370. And I just sort of said, well, then Eternia is going to be over $500 because of that. And it ended up being $550. And that's just a prediction. I'm by no means saying that that's the right price at all. There were a few people out there who expected it to be more. Like when I looked at certain toy podcasts, some people said, oh, it's probably going to be $800. And I'm like, well, at $800, you've priced everybody out. And I didn't think it was going to be, like 400 or something like that, just because of what certain HasLabs were, and because the New Generation ring was just under 400 itself, and there's a lot more plastic involved in this particular thing. And Han, that's where you say that's the price with it, including shipping to the US. And the issues is bigger. Yeah, I'm curious what you mean by that, Will, about the issues being bigger than just the price for the item. Look, there's going to be a lot of people out there who just have to have this as a battleground. I what do you call it? I know it's going to be 4 feet by 3 feet. I thought that was the footprint of it, but someone did mention that the 3 feet might be the height of it, which I'm struggling to think that it's going to be 3 feet tall, just because I know that Unicron was only like, how tall was Unicron? Was he 27 inches? I think Unicron was 27 inches, which is not even 2.5 feet. So I think 3 by 4 has got to be the footprint of this. And yes, Will, it's kind of become the norm now, for both, for a lot of companies that they end up paying up front and waiting a year for this to show up. And thank you, Jody, for plugging the Patreon here. I much appreciate you putting that there. I know a lot of people say that you shouldn't judge the price of an item by an unlock. And I know that the early bird item is going to be the King Grayskull. But I judged the Sky Striker last year by the unlocks. I think I backed it, thinking that I might pull out of it if all they had was going to be the 2 pilots. But once they unlocked, well, first they added 3 figures to the Sky Striker, including the Mickey Mouse Cobra Commander, which, as you know, the vintage version is really hard to get on the secondary market and quite expensive. And I imagine this reissue that comes with the Sky Striker is going to be hard to get as well, because it's only available with the Sky Striker. Once they unlocked Scarlet, I was like, okay, that's kind of a cool concept with the flight suit. And Ripcord being Night Force was the one that made me think, okay, it's finally worth it, because Night Force figures tend to be expensive on the secondary market, at least for vintage ones. So it's hard for me to look at this and not say something like, oh yeah, wait for the unlocks before you decide if it's worth it. Because if an unlock is really, really, really cool, that might make the item for somebody. So, gosh, I'm struggling with this one because so much has been said about it already, and it's already so divisive that I don't want to put out any polarizing opinions out there, because you've all heard them. So all I would be doing is taking hate one way or the other, even if I say it's worth it or it's not worth it. But I just felt that this was worth acknowledging. I am glad that they are including King Grayskull, though I imagine they'll probably just do a second King Grayskull in the main line at some point. So, I know that's being used as an incentive, but as big of an issue for the price as the price is the space that people are devoting towards this. Okay, Jordan from Canada, anonymous dude. We'll change the name for sure. And yeah, they get to sit on some interest while also profiting from the item. I totally understand. Yeah, and I also don't like the idea of having my credit card dinged later on, because, you know, what if I pay for an expensive vacation or something that same month, and all of a sudden something comes out of my credit card that I pre-ordered a while ago. This happens to me with Amazon sometimes. So yes, and Jonathan Redmond, I agree. Extra tier unlocks, usually that's because the company has made enough money on the previous on everyone's backing money already. Therefore, the rest should be considered as extras or bonus. It's just hard to, like, when I look back at something like the Sky Striker or the Hiss Tank in retrospective, it's hard for me to think of it that way, because I tend to start going, okay, well, this figure's worth $20, this figure's worth 30. Oh, okay, it adds up. But I see what you're saying, because you're taking the retroactive lens and justifying the price that way rather than the base offering, which was the only thing you were guaranteed. So it's a catch-22. I've seen people say exactly what you're saying, and I've seen people say, well, when the unlocks come, we'll recalculate then. So I totally understand what you're saying. I have a tendency to go the recalculation route because that's what you end up with, right? Rather than what you started with. So, but again, that's just where my brain goes. I'm not saying that that's right or wrong. No thanks. And yeah, I see the name change now. Anonymous Dude 123. And yeah, I agree. That a non-refundable deposit. This way I'm not dinged the full price later on. And thank you, Jordan. Much appreciate that. I appreciate your support. Ryan. Okay, sorry, just catching the catching up with the chat here. Look, I think I've said enough about this particular item. Now, with regards to GI Joe Classified, because this is sort of the what have I done here? As far as GI Joe Classified is concerned, it's kind of the main thing that we cover on. Well, I shouldn't say the main thing, but GI Joe seems to be the one that on this channel, my GI Joe videos tend to do better than others. If you look at this is in Canadian dollars. That $36 CAD, that's Canadian. So no, that's not in US. So you got to subtract at least 30% or maybe 35%. And it's dry in here. If you see me itching my back, it's because it's really dry in here in the room at the moment. So shout out to ecollectibles.ca. I've purposely pulled out their website, so if anybody from Canada wants to order from them, they are trustworthy. Mike is a great guy and has always come through for me. A lot of people will complain about Falcon's face and head sculpt. I'm really hoping that, he's probably going to end up looking that way, but we have seen some minor changes before the product ships before. I'm guessing this is the Paint Master from Hasbro. Which if that's the Paint Master that's photographed, then it means it's too late to change the sculpt. But I'm not sure. Hopefully once you get the beret on and everything, he looks a little bit better. And I say e-collectibles, and look who shows up. I was wondering if you'd turn up, Mike. So anyway, I got this. It showed up for pre-order at the right time, because while I was at the Victoria Ultimate Hobby and Toy Fair, I found a 1966 Green Beret complete. At least the outfit with with what they call the painted head era of G.I. Joe. I'm not an expert of that era by any means, and I was almost tempted to grab it just because I think that the Green Beret is, well, a lot of people feel this way, that the Green Beret is the coolest figure in the original 1960s G.I. Joe range. And then, of course, you know me, I like doing my whole evolution and progression of toys, dating all the way back to the inception of a character. And I kind of look at that 60s Green Beret as being like the inspiration for Lieutenant Falcon. And I almost grabbed it. I believe that the seller wanted 400 Canadian, or that's about 300 US, for a complete 1966 Green Beret. I'm not even sure if it came with the bazooka, which was one of those items that, depending on which issue of the Green Beret you got, it either came packed with it or not with it. I almost caved, but I couldn't convince myself to do it, if that makes sense. A few people told me that because that 60s G.I. Joe era, a lot of the crowd who collected it's getting older, they may start selling and purging it. So a few of my friends said, before you go and splurge 400 Canadian on the 66 Green Beret, you may want to see whether or not the price tanks in a couple of years' time. And I'm like, yeah, but then I got to wait a couple of years, you know, and that's going to be the last one to tank because that's the popular one from that era. But anyway, I'm digressing a little bit here talking about the 66 Green Beret. It just so happened that this dropped the same weekend, and I will be ordering it from eCollectibles. I've been a bit lazy so I shouldn't say that. I've been distracted the last couple of days just making the videos coming from my Victoria trip. So that's why I haven't gotten around to doing it yet. But I love the outfit. I like the gear. Some people will say that the face scan, and I'll try to zoom into the face scan here a little bit. You know what? The lips look a little bit weird here. I'm really hoping that somehow changes, or that he looks better from other angles. Hard for me to really to say that I like the face sculpt of it. Here, let's look at the other photo. I mean, I guess for here with the beret on and him being posed, it doesn't look so bad. But overall, the colors look good. The gear looks good. And the thing about the face sculpt is, at least they're not sculpting it to look exactly like a specific person, from what I know. Like the thing that bugs me is when I get like a wrestling figure and it's supposed to be, I don't know, Bret the Hitman Hart. He's one that, you know, I'm not just saying that because Bret's my favorite wrestler, but because Bret's a face scan that they never seem to get right. They being the sculptors. And it's a hard face to get right, I'm sure. But they just always find a way to screw up Bret the Hitman Hart's look. So it's not like they're trying to mold Falcon after somebody specifically, if that makes sense. So that's kind of a saving grace, but I'm not justifying that it's a good face scan by any means. I'm just saying that, you know, I'm waiting to see when the figure comes in, and I'll be ordering it regardless. So here's Cover Girl, which I'm glad that they've got. She comes with more gear than she did from her 1983 O-ring appearance. Oops, what am I doing here? I'm jumping to the wrong tab again. Sorry. Got to figure out how to use my own StreamYard account. So, and yes, I think it's very reminiscent of the classic Green Beret. I forget, Jim, whether or not you're a fan of the 60s G.I. Joe. I might need some help trying to figure out whether I want to buy that 60s Green Beret and how much I should maybe spend on it. Because when I try to look at eBay, everything varies on the quality of the cloth, the wear and tear of the figure, which specific accessories he comes with. Because it's not like collecting 82 to 94 Real American Hero where you say, okay, he's complete or not complete. Every issue of the Green Beret or any or any outfit is will help the price vary. Why the eyeliner, I'm not sure. And yes, the mouth is something that I'm like, yeah, that's what makes him not look like his animation appearance. Great comment, Adam. Yeah, much agreed. But I mean, in the 80s when it first came out, well, yeah, I mean, Vietnam was long over by that point, but still a bit. Anyway, you're totally right, Jim. And yeah, I don't know what that was. It's supposed to be a cell phone or an iPad there next to Cover Girl. Yeah, there we go. That's what I thought. It was an iPad. What? Okay, I'm not sure if there's an inside joke there or not, but I'll definitely be getting Cover Girl as well, just because I like the color scheme. I like the way. I mean, I generally buy most of the mainline G.I. Joe releases anyway. The one thing that I don't do is I haven't gotten into the sub teams yet, and part of that reason is just because I've got so much else to buy out there that I've justified it to myself that I don't need the sub teams. Mind you, I said the same thing when I was collecting O-Ring again. Not when I was a kid, because when I was a kid, I most definitely collected Tiger Force and Iron Grenadiers. But as an adult, I said I wasn't going to get the sub teams, and then I dived into the sub teams on the 3 3/4 inch figures. Anyway, so but Cover Girl, the one thing I wonder is if they're ever going to make a Wolverine tank for her. More power to them if they do. But I think if they do, it's going to be somewhere like way down the line. So, okay. We got Outback. Now, this is just a nice looking figure. Everything about it just screams 80s Joe or screams Chuck Norris, depending on how you want to look at it. I know he wasn't a character from the cartoon, but he's a very cool 1987 figure that just the whole concept of a survivalist out in the wilderness absolutely makes Outback somebody that turns into a fan favorite, even if he doesn't have that much mythos behind him. Now, I know he probably appeared in the Larry Hama run, if I'm not mistaken. I never got that deep into the run, which everyone keeps telling me to get into the run. I remember reading a few issues as a kid, and I read 10 issues or so as an adult. But I think he had a big role in the Larry Hama run. So he's another one that I got as well. Okay, Jody, have a good one. I know it's getting late over there in the Netherlands, but thank you for joining in the channel memberships, and thank you for your super chat again earlier, and for all your support of the channel. Subscribe to GenXToysGeek if you get a chance. Actually, even if you don't get a chance, just go over there right now. Ignore what I'm doing and subscribe to him. Once he gets his content fired up again, it's going to be gold. Yeah, there you go. Right, if you want, you can customize him into an Action Force Chuck Norris. So, and on top of this, I didn't pull up the tabs for the other two characters, because I'm just showing you the ones that I plan to get from the classified line. I know that they're doing a Marauders, and they're calling it Mad Marauders, I think they're calling it, rather than Slaughter's Marauders. I know they're doing Barbecue, and I know that they're doing a Crimson Bat. I didn't get the Python Bat, and I don't see myself getting the Crimson Bat either. I'm happy with just the regular colored version. As for Marauders, as they release them, as cool as the color scheme is, and people either love or hate the Marauders color scheme. I'm in the I like it more than I don't. And oh, sorry, my phone. Sorry, my phone beeped at me. Sorry. Don't know why I did that. It just suddenly scared me for a second. My phone started talking to me. I think it was trying to turn whatever the equivalent of the Android is for Siri, just turned on. Anyway, if I do go into Marauders, I'll probably grab Sergeant Slaughter. And that'll be the only one that I get, right? So, and Jody, thank you for the second round of super chats here. You're always so kind to the channel. And yes, to me, it will always be called Slaughter's Marauders, no matter what they call them, right? It's like when they changed, Transformer Shockwave and called him Shock Blast. To me, he was always and is always going to be Shockwave, right? And I'm just going to stop sharing here, because that was my last screen that I was going to pull up. Crimson Bat to match the Crimson Twins and Crimson Guard, absolutely, and it kind of fleshes out that particular sub team as well. For me personally, I just got to draw the line somewhere, and I'm not sure exactly where to draw it. So I just simply say that I'm going to try to stick to the ones that are the most faithful to the 82 to 94 run. But like I said, there will always be exceptions, right? Like for when I collected and continue to collect modern Transformers, I try to stick to the characters who were in the Sunbow animated cartoon. But then I found that the Earthrise Double Dealer figure was just so cool, I ended up getting him anyway. So it just comes down to whatever your main core collecting is relative to your shelf space, your funds, and then you make one-off exceptions here and there. Mind you, I say that, and this Super 7 Shredder was supposed to be an exception. Ends up, I'm getting the rest of the original characters in Super 7. It's funny you mentioned that the Leo Mech. I was just about to chat a little bit about the TMNT. I probably won't be getting that one, but it's another one you can get off of eCollectibles, among many other sites. And I did manage to get Raphael and Leonardo from Super 7 while I was at the Victoria Fair, and eCollectibles sending me Michelangelo and Donatello. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a live unboxing of the Super 7 Turtles. And what I'll probably do is open them in the order that I got them as a kid. When I was a kid, I got Raphael first, then Donatello, then Leonardo, then Michelangelo. So it'll be cool getting to relive that experience live. So that's coming down the pipe whenever that comes in, and I'll just come live and kind of do something like this, and I'll do what I did last time. I'll set up the dual cam, and I will have one cam facing me and one cam facing the figures, and I'll open them up that way. So there was quite a bit else that was revealed, right? Marvel Legends revealed a few figures like Spiral and Iron Man from their appearance in the Marvel vs. Capcom 2 game. I forgot what else Marvel Marvel released. The Indiana Jones stuff is getting a lot of traction right now. I see that Usual Mike TV put up a shout out to him in Australia. He put up a video on it earlier today. Now, I'm not the biggest Indiana Jones fan. I by no means dislike it. I just don't have the same exposure that a lot of other people do to it. So I was never going to jump into a 6-inch Indiana Jones line. Having said that, Harrison Ford is Harrison Ford. He's just that cool. So whether I grab a 6-inch Indy figure because I just happen to find it, that's definitely possible for me. Now, I know I'm missing a few other things here. I know Fortnite had some reveals, but if I say I'm not an indie guy, I'm an even less of a Fortnite guy. My exposure to Fortnite is, whatever my nephew played, and the Havoc figure that reminds us of Firefly. That's kind of where I stand with that. Sorry, my phone keeps beeping and says I didn't understand that. It seems to be glitching right now, and I think I'm talking to it. Just shove my phone away. I'm also monitoring my phone because I got to go in about 15 minutes to pick up my son from school, but my mother-in-law might text and say that she's finished her appointment and go do it. And if she does, then I'll be able to stay online a tiny bit later. But it's good to see the rest of your those of you who are in the chat to see your thoughts on it. What's worth it? What isn't? You've noticed that while I did call the thumbnail "What's worth it? What isn't?" It's all going to be subjective, right? Even if an item is overpriced on paper, there's always that I gotta have it feeling, right? There's always that feeling of I've already collected this, and this new item goes with another item I already have, or I need it to flesh out a scene or a space on the shelf. Then you end up buying it for that particular reason. There are times in the past where I've said, I paid too much for it, right? A lot of people will say that Super 7 is overpriced. One small silver lining is that the Raphael that I got from the Toy Fair, it was complete. It was in the box, but the box was open. They normally go for 55 US. I got it for 55 Canadian. So I don't know what that is. It's just over 40 US. Because I got it secondhand, the person was just trying to purge it. They took a loss on it. So even when something is overpriced, which I'm not saying it is, but a lot of people do feel that those ultimates are overpriced. If you get on the secondary market at a toy show from somebody trying to purge it, you can get it a little bit cheaper. So that's that. Oh, there we go. Curious about whether or not who is making the Leonardo Mech, and yes, it's going to be made by where are you? Hot Boys is making it. Same company behind the DreamX Turtles. Thank you for that, Microbe Collectibles. Kieran, good to see you. I know it's getting a little bit late on your side of the globe, but I'm glad that you could make it. And 16-bit Misfit. We were just talking turtles last night, actually. I was asking him the price of some vintage turtles that he happened to have, but I splurged at the recent toy fair, and any money that I did make, being a vendor, I am basically using that to cover my expenses on everything else that I pre-ordered over the weekend. So yeah, damn, you guys are a great community over here. Just glad to see it. Overwhelmed by the good support that we've got here in the chat. I mean, when I first started the channel, I never really thought I'd ever go live, because I was kind of like, well, who really wants to hear me yammer on about toys? And then I started getting into other podcasts and thought, you know what, there's conversation to be had out there. So when I say I'm grateful for what you folks have done to support the channel, regardless of whether or not you're a member or a patron, if you're just here commenting, if you're subscribed, every little bit helps, because I was not the most confident person coming into this channel, which, maybe I'll get into the whole story behind that one day. But being somebody who's obsessed with lore and histories and all that, I got into the wrong crowd of friends when I first started collecting toys in my early 20s. I got into the crowd of friends who's like, I buy it because it looks cool. And anything beyond that, it was like, you're a nerd. And I'm like, but aren't we all nerds if we're collecting toys as adults anyway? And it's like, yeah, but you pay attention to the lore and the histories, and that's too much for me. I just like it because it looks cool. And I'm like, okay, buddy. And that kind of made me second guess and think to myself, and there's going to be always a little bit of resentment, because if I hadn't encountered that particular individual or individuals, I may have started the channel earlier. I may have been more confident to talk toys in a public space earlier. And it was only once I kind of shed that baggage I was carrying that I was able to do things like create a channel and write up and research histories more and talk about it with you folks over there. So just overwhelmed by the support. And let's have a look. And yeah, if you get them graded, all the better for you. 16-bit Misfit. And yeah, it is. You're absolutely right, Kevin. It's nice to chat. Nice to chat for that. For that reason, with like-minded hobbyists. And yes, good vibes from all around, Jim. Always glad when you're around to talk toys. And it's Graham. Good to see you here. Hope you're well, buddy. Haven't chatted with you since before I left for the toy fair, but it's been good on my end. Oh yes, we were supposed to talk like like a year ago. I completely gaffed, Kevin, on that. Sorry about that. Yeah, thank you, Jordan. And yeah, you're absolutely right, Will. Some people are definitely in denial. I've literally had a guy say to me, "Oh, you're so concerned about figure scale and histories and stuff that doesn't matter. I'd rather go talk to a girl." And I'd be like, "So go talk to a girl." Nah. Like, that's a literal conversation I had a number of years ago with someone who said that I paid too much attention to the fine details of toys. I'm like, all right, cool. And yeah, there is definitely a little bit of gatekeeping that happened early on as well. And yeah, it took a while to find a better circle of people, which just happened over the last number of years. And yes, of course, we do buy because they look cool. That's usually the thing that gets us in. But the thing about you, Vagon, is you don't judge someone for researching histories and looking up the lore, right? So yeah, and I appreciate that, Kieran. But Kieran, one of the people who really welcomed me into the community when I was just jumping into live chats and not even realizing that there was such a thing as a live feed next to the screen was yourself. Right, I'd go in and you'd tag me and say, "Hello, Toy Connections," and I'd be like, "I have no idea who this is, but he's really nice to me." And you've been doing the same thing to everyone when they come in. And yeah, Will, we could chat toys all day and night, and subscribe to Wilhelm Toy and Hobby as well, because he's got a channel out there where he does some unboxings and finds some toys out in the wild there. So hey, you're very welcome, and thank you for the kind words, Jordan. Yeah, and you know what? My mantra has always been, when I learn, you learn. Like, when I was, a lot of the histories that I look up, even when I did my recent Transformers 1987 history video, I had to go back and not just check stuff out online, but also watch a couple of old episodes, because I hadn't seen that particular Headmasters cartoon series from Japan in such a long time. I also had to talk to some of my friends who were more knowledgeable in toy space than me. And what I always like saying is, I like hanging out with people in particular circles who know more than me about that topic. I will never look at myself as a master of anything. I will always look at myself as a learner, an apprentice, student of the game, as they like to call it, if this can be called a game. Not YouTube game, but just the toy space, the overall toy collecting game. And I use that term lightly because I'm not trying to game anyone, if that makes sense. But there were people who knew more about the overseas exclusives than me, and I had to talk to them, right? So I like hanging out in circles. Like, if I'm making a G.I. Joe video, I like being able to go to somebody who knows more about it than me and vetting my knowledge. I've gone as far as to send my video scripts to other people and said, can you double check this part of it for me and check the flow of it if you don't mind reading. And that's and some of those people, they say, do not credit me at all in the description. So to the friends like Jeffrey Chan, who has been a big helper in that way, I'll thank you by saying that here now. And no, Kevin, I didn't get the new generation ring. I almost pulled the trigger on it last year, but I just couldn't justify getting the new generation ring. And yes, Jordan, I appreciate that. I mean, when I try to do this, and speaking of wrestling, I think I forgot to say hi to Will Agnes earlier on in the chat. So, Will Agnes, if you're still here, I missed your message above, but thank you. I just love doing it. Like, it's the kind of history that I like to that I love to discuss. Absolutely, 16-bit Misfit, 100%. And yeah, everyone likes to find a bargain for toys, and investments aside, they're only worth what people are willing to pay for it. Absolutely. If you find a bargain because you got it on clearance or secondhand, sometimes that's the make or break, right? Like, you're sitting there saying, I've already spent too much, and you go, oh, wait a minute, this item's on clearance, I can justify it. Happens to me all the time, right? That's funny. Jonathan. Oh, hey, Tedirium Hanger. Good to see you. No, I'm not in on Eternia. I talked a little bit about it earlier. I don't actually collect MOTU Origins on any grand scale, so I haven't been able to. So I didn't end up getting it. Tedirium Hanger. I think you have a channel as well. I could be wrong, but I could have sworn I've seen your name and broken down some Transformers stuff before, or at least showed some Transformers. And yeah. Anyway, I think so. Oliver Belmont. His guess is most collectors will just go for MOTU Origins figures and vehicles, but the Eternia playset, yeah. So I think once Castle Grayskull went to clearance, they probably learned their lesson and decided to crowdfund things. You know, whether or not you consider that a person considers that right or not. At least it's the way they're electing to get this out there. And yes, size is a big factor. Would have loved Unicron, but no room for something like that. So this is an issue for me as well. Like, when I do buy something big, a lot of times it goes in storage. Fort Max from G1 in storage. Grand Max in storage. Flag storage. Terradrome storage. Boulder Hill, which I just got on the weekend, actually, as part of my haul, which you'll see the video drop on my haul this weekend, or Patreon supporters already have access as of right now. That's going into storage right now. I'm not sure if I'll keep it or not. I basically paid, like less than half the price for it. Though it's missing some pieces. So I'm deciding whether I'm going to keep it or not. And let me just quickly check my phone and see if I have to go pick up my son or not. And it looks like I do. So I will have to log off relatively soon here and head over to the school. And I agree that the Eternia will likely be funded and put into production. I won't be supporting it for the reasons I stated earlier. But there's going to be a lot of people who are going to want it, just because relative to the price of a vintage Eternia, it's still less. Yeah. Okay. Nolan, good to see you. Thank you for all your support on the channel. And yes, some people feel that way too, that crowdfunding is a win-win. Some people feel, though, that large companies should not be crowdfunding, and that's a divisive topic all to itself. Yeah. Okay. Well, look, I've been online for just close to an hour or so here, and ultimately, I wasn't going to break any new news on this, but what I was trying to do with this stream is to kind of bring everything together, because a lot of people who are mostly MOTU people may not have known about, like, the Orion packs and the Alpha Trion 2-pack, right? People who were into those lines may not have known about the Headless Horseman that was done by the Four Horsemen, which I just learned on this stream, thanks to Adam, that it's the Figura Obscura is actually a new, like, subline by the Four Horsemen. It's not part of Mythic Legions, though I know a lot of people will probably put it as part of Mythic Legions. I learned that here. There's people out there who didn't know about what the Astro Megaship represented, or people from that who didn't know, who may not be caught up on G.I. Joe Classified, though most of my viewers will know about G.I. Joe Classified. I kind of wanted to tie that all together. And the whole thumbnail title of what's worth it, what isn't, that's more a question for the rest of you, because I've already made my choices, right? Like, I haven't gotten the Headless Horseman. Would have liked to, but I had too many commitments at the time. I bought the 3 classified figures I mentioned. I bought the Alpha Trion and Orion packs. I did not get the Astro Megaship. I did not get Eternia. I'm forgetting some stuff here. So that's why I chose to have this particular stream, show you one collector's opinion, and at the same time kind of bring those different toy lines together under, just under one stream to kind of, if you got something out of the stream, if it's, wow, I didn't know that, about the Headless Horseman, or wow, I didn't know about the Astro Megaship, great. It's all about, like I said, when I learn, you learn. And Sergeant Slaughterhouse is awake. I know it's early there in the morning in Australia. And yeah, I appreciate that sub, share, and do it again for the replay. Awesome. Gazz. Yeah, well, you made it. I know you were traveling home from work there, but I'm going to log off relatively quickly here. Just because I got to do a school pickup in the next, literally, I got to be at the school's front door in 15 minutes. So I probably won't even get to clean up my computer equipment and webcam and all that before I go in and do that. Yeah. Okay. And yeah, you know what? Love the wonderful people in the chat, including yourself. Oh, an Astro Train repaint just dropped. Okay. All right. We'll have to check that out. I'm sure when I go on Facebook, I'll see it somewhere in my feed. Yeah, and hit the like button before you go. Anyway, look, this stream will be available for the replay, but I do have to bounce here. I mean, I could sit online and keep talking. I was even thinking about doing an open invite to a few of the people and get them on if I had the time, but I've clearly run out of time. So check out my video that I dropped just yesterday on the O-Ring Ninjas that Whiskey Jack Toys is dropping. It's called Legends of the Hidden Force. The owner of that line used to run Red Laser's Army. If you remember that, the G.I. Joe pseudo bootleg line that was out a number of years ago. So, and I got to hang out with him over the weekend. Sorry, I should say co-owner, because he has a couple of partners in business there. But shout out to Darren for giving me a bit of an exclusive look at the O-Ring Ninjas. That Kickstarter will drop sometime later this fall. I think he wasn't firm on a date yet because he had to submit the Kickstarter request to Kickstarter themselves, and they were going to put him somewhere in the queue. Look for my toy fair / toy hall stream later in the week. And I may do a TKO this weekend. Like I said, I was feeling under the weather the last couple of days, but yes, I'm COVID negative, so it's not that for sure. Probably just fatigue. So we'll see if I end up doing a TKO over the weekend. But most likely, even if I don't do a guest panel, I'll at least do a TKO like this at the very minimum. Most likely Sunday morning, because Saturday morning I got to take my son somewhere. But okay, look. Pleasure, everyone. Oh, and thank you, Stephen S. And thank you, everyone. Thank you, Kevin Johnson. Oh, KJ from the, oh my God, I almost said Island of Misfit Toy Collectors. I know you're there as well, but from Toy Kind of Mood. Okay, all right then. And yes, AEW is on later tonight. All right, tune in next time, and I will see you all again soon. So subscribe, like, share, look for the new videos on the channel. And love you all. Take care. And I'll see you again next time. Bye.